The Suzuki Hayabusa, the fastest motorcycle in the world, is what a lot of people think, but that's actually not the case, and it hasn't been the case for a number of years. But yet people still think, whenever they think the fastest motorcycle in the world, they automatically think Hayabusa. So let's jump on the Kawasaki ZZR1400 here, and let me tell you exactly why that's not the case, and as many motorcycles as I can think of, they're not actually faster. Let's jump on, let's go. Yeah, it's true. So many people have the Hayabusa in mind whenever they think the fastest motorcycle in the world. And it really annoys me because this motorcycle, the ZZR1400 from Kawasaki, is actually faster than the Hayabusa. There is something to be said for the first generation Hayabusa. That thing was just insane. The first generation Hayabusa totally changed the playing field, because all of a sudden it made a lot of motorcycles that were considered really fast, made them almost redundant. Things like the Kawasaki ZZR1100, the ZZR1200, these were really fast motorcycles, and arguably the fastest for the time. Honda's Super Blackbird, another really great example. They're really fast motorcycles, and Suzuki, all of a sudden, they just pushed out their Hayabusa, and yeah, all of a sudden, all the other brands were like, oh my god, we got to start making faster bikes. And so fair play to Suzuki. They did such a fantastic job marketing the Hayabusa, giving it the reputation that it still has to this day, despite the fact that it's not. There are lots and lots of motorcycles out there that are faster that don't have the reputation that the Hayabusa does. I find it absolutely fascinating, because even normies, people that aren't into motorcycles, they know about the Hayabusa. So it's like Kawasaki Ninja. A lot of people know about Kawasaki Ninja, but for my mind, the Ninja brand has been used far too much. Ninja is no longer a special brand because they put it on almost everything now, Kawasaki. I don't really like that. Right? On their racing range, on the ZX range, they should have the Ninja branding, but now everything's got Ninja branding on it. It's like you got the Ninja 400 and the Ninja ZX-14R, right? It just gets really confusing for people, despite the fact that ZX4 is a much kind of, it's oh god, how do I describe it? It's a race bike. The ZX4R is a race bike through and through, whereas the Ninja 400 is more of a sport tourer. It's more of a street bike. Alright, so Hayabusa, first generation Hayabusa, king of speed, could do over 200 mile an hour, because this was before they kind of all shook their hands and agreed that no motorcycle should go faster than 186 mile an hour. So the first generation Hayabusa can certainly claim that title as being the fastest motorcycle in the world during that time. So the 1999 version, I think, was the only model that could do 200 mile an hour stock. Of course, people modify Hayabusas, so they are able to go much faster than stock, but we're talking about just stock motorcycles here. Alright, the Hayabusa, the latest generation Hayabusa, is actually quite a disappointing motorcycle. It has less horsepower than the previous generation, but it has about the same amount of torque as the previous one, right? So it's not actually as quick as the second generation Hayabusa was, or the first generation Hayabusa. So I think off the top of my head, maybe it was still quicker than the first. I can't remember, because it didn't have 200 horsepower. I can't remember how much horsepower the original Hayabusa had, but this latest generation Hayabusa, the third generation Hayabusa, has got 170-ish horsepower or so, something like that. And the biggest reason why is because of all the emissions things. Suzuki wanted to release a new generation of Hayabusa, but they could only do it if they complied to emission standards. And fair play to them, they did it. Alright, the Hayabusa, whatever I'm going to say in today's video, the Hayabusa is still a fantastic motorcycle, right? It's still really good. Right, so you can't go wrong buying a Hayabusa. But a lot of people buy them with the assumption that it is going to be one of the baddest and one of the fastest machines in the world. And it really is not. A lot of sport bikes nowadays, the 1000cc class sport bikes, are all faster than the Hayabusa. Yamaha's R1 has been faster than the Hayabusa for a long time. Probably best part of 10 years now, maybe, it's been faster than the Hayabusa. Right? Ducati's Panigale V4, that's one of the fastest bikes on the planet. Honda's new Fireblade, one of the fastest bikes on the planet. Kawasaki's ZX-14R, of course. Kawasaki's Ninja H2, of course, as well. Some of the fastest motorcycles on the planet. Even my ZH2, I think, is faster than this latest generation Hayabusa. And the reason why is because the Hayabusa is such a heavy bike. So it produces less horsepower than it used to, but it's still the same platform and it still carries the same weight. So it's never going to be as fast as some of these bikes that are producing more horsepower and are lighter, much lighter. This is one of the reasons why I absolutely love the ZX-14, all right, the ZZR1400, this motorcycle right here, because this was pretty much the only competitor to Suzuki's Hayabusa at the time. But this bike never got the credit it deserved, which I can't believe. Kawasaki, they pulled out all the stops to try and make a motorcycle that was faster than the Hayabusa, and they did it. More torque, more horsepower. This second generation ZZR1400 was faster than the second gen Hayabusa, and it's still faster than the third generation Hayabusa. Alright? This motorcycle is absolutely brilliant. It's really fast, it's really mean. For God's sake, it can do 0 to 60, no, excuse me. It can do 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, which is just absolutely outrageous. This motorcycle came out in 2012, this generation. Absolutely outrageous. The fastest motorcycle in the world, 2.5 seconds, 0 to 60. And it can do a quarter mile in 9.5 seconds. A quarter mile in 9.5 seconds. That is just totally outrageous. But it never ever got any of the recognition that it deserved at the time. Of course, anyone who rode Kawasaki's, they knew about this bike and they knew how good it really was. But it really didn't get out there as much as the Hayabusa brand did. I mean, the really cool thing about the Hayabusa branding, actually, I should mention this, because it's really cool. From Suzuki, it's absolutely brilliant, it's so clever. So the Honda Blackbird was considered probably the fastest motorcycle in the world, next to bikes like the ZZR1400, ZZR1100, things like that from Kawasaki. So when the Hayabusa came out, that brand name really stuck in everyone's minds, because the Hayabusa is a bird and it hunts blackbirds, which is awesome. That is absolutely fantastic naming and fantastic marketing just from the name of the bike. You know that that bike is going to mean business, and ever since it has been one of the fastest motorcycles in the world. And next to the ZZR1400, despite the fact it's been so heavily restricted these days because of emissions. Alright, but let's list some more bikes that are faster than the Hayabusa. Right, so we've listed all the sport bikes, we've listed, for God's sake, Aprilia's RSV4, right? That's faster than a Hayabusa, hands down, easy, no contest, right? Even motorcycles like Ducati Street Fighter V4, that is one of those bikes that, because I've ever been interested in a Ducati until I started getting whiffs of the latest generation Street Fighter V4. That thing is just crazy fast, because it's just a sport bike that's naked. it's just absolutely insane. But yeah, any of Ducati's V4 engines, anything they put them in is faster than the Hayabusa, pretty much. Alright. BMW's S1000RR, easily faster than the Hayabusa. My point is that there is still this misconception that the Hayabusa is the fastest motorcycle ever made and ever was, when so many brands have made so many bikes that are much faster in a lot of ways. All right, it's actually quite impressive how these other brands have been able to not just compete with the Hayabusa, but totally outclass it in terms of performance. Honestly, you go ahead and you Google the top 10 fastest motorcycles of all time, road legal motorcycles of all time. The Hayabusa is going to be pretty much at the bottom of the list, if not on the list at all. Especially well, in a more modern sense. That first generation and second generation Hayabusas were totally revolutionary, and no one can take that away from Suzuki. It's like Apple versus Android. I'm an Android person, alright? I always have been. And I've never owned an iPhone except for work purposes, because they supply us with iPhones. God knows why. And it's like no one can take away from Apple that they were the people who basically invented the smartphone, who popularized the idea of a touchscreen, of a fully operational phone using touch commands. No one can take that away from Apple. But these days, Android phones are much more powerful. Their cameras are better. The camera quality is better. In a lot of ways, Android phones are much better in terms of performance than Apple phones. I'm a bit of a tech geek myself, alright? I work in IT, I'm an infrastructure engineer, I build my own computers, I love playing video games on PC, right? I've got a really expensive rig at home, and phones is one of those battlegrounds where everyone's like, oh, Apple's better, Android's better, and you know, Apple phones are really damn good. Of course, you can't say that they're not good, alright? The hardware in them is absolutely fantastic. But these days, they're just not as good as Android in terms of raw performance. It's like Intel versus AMD, Nvidia versus AMD. It's a very real argument among the tech community. These these kinds of debates are raging all the time. But it's a very similar situation to the Hayabusa. It is a fantastic motorcycle. There is no denying how good the Hayabusa is. Even though, and I think the most impressive thing about this latest generation Hayabusa is that they were able to do this and still stick within emission standards, the latest emission standards. That is so commendable, man. That is absolutely fantastic from Suzuki. Absolutely brilliant. And you could argue that it's damaged their ability to release a new ZX-14R, because the amount of R&D that they probably put into the Hayabusa, they've had to take some of that R&D budget away from the ZX-1000. And right now, as far as I'm aware, there is no replacement for the ZX-1000 anymore. There's no new ZX-1000s that you can buy here in Europe, which is an absolute tragedy in my mind. Because again, the ZX-1000 is actually, I think, is actually faster than the third generation Hayabusa. You know? So yeah, it's a real shame. But the Hayabusa is the brand, it is the name, it's the marketing that Suzuki have really, really held on to over the last 20 years. But this video is not to bash the Hayabusa in any way, shape or form. This video is to educate people, because there are more options out there. If you are looking for a really fast motorcycle, you're looking to get into the motorcycling hobby, and you want to be one of those riders that has got the baddest, the fastest motorcycle in the world, the Hayabusa might be your top choice. But there are loads of options out there that are badder and faster than the Hayabusa. So just keep that in mind. If you're shopping for the fastest motorcycle on the planet, it's not going to be the Hayabusa anymore. But anyway, everyone, thank you ever so much for watching all the way to the end of today's video. And this person just pulled out in front of me. Yeah, good, well done. Didn't even look, did you? Didn't even look at the roundabout. Anyway, I'm not gonna get too wound up finishing off this video. But yeah, thank you ever so much for watching all the way to the end. If this video has educated you, if you didn't realize how slow the Suzuki Hayabusa is compared to a lot of modern motorcycles, hit that like button. Let's see if we can get this video to 100 likes. 100 likes, come on. Now, those of you that are Hayabusa fans, all right, I'm not saying anything bad about the Hayabusa, don't get me wrong, all right, it's not a slow motorcycle by any stretch of the imagination, all right. All I'm doing is clarifying the fact that it's not as fast as some people think it is, all right. So those of you that are Hayabusa lovers, go ahead, leave me that like, all right. Leave that like for the Suzuki Hayabusa, because I really want to see Kawasaki make a 3rd gen ZX-14, but they're not going to do it. But Suzuki had the balls to do it, all right. So leave a like for that, because I friggin' love the Hayabusa. We wouldn't have bikes like this if it wasn't for the Hayabusa. So yeah, absolutely friggin' wicked. Leave a like for the Hayabusa. Leave a like for the Kawasaki ZZR1400. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more content on this absolutely breathtaking motorcycle. And we will catch you all in the next video. Have a good one, everyone. Take care. Ride safe.